After showing you everything about Vanilda and how I built it for less than €1,000, today we're gonna talk about money, but not the money I spent to build this, the money I spent to live here. If you missed the last 4 vlogs about how I build everything, link is below. As I promised yesterday, today we're gonna talk about money. We're gonna talk about how much money I spend, and if you want to live this way, how much money do you need? And I'm talking about this because I see some videos on YouTube, also some blogs, people saying that they can travel for, I don't know, 3 months with €500, $10 a day and stuff like that, and to be honest, I don't believe it. I don't believe at all. And I'm gonna explain to you why I don't believe it, even if we need to separate two things right away. And from the beginning, I want you to understand that I'm talking about living in a van and not going in holidays. Even if I will talk a little bit about going in holidays, but most of all is about living full-time in a van. How much I spend living here. Everyone is different. Countries are different. The way you travel, everything is important by the end of the month when you see how much money you spend. Then, if you're traveling alone or with someone else, what kind of person you are, what kind of things you like to do. There's one thing that you need to remember, and I'm talking about actually living in a van, not going in holidays, because if you go in holidays, you can be 2 weeks without spending money in some things like a restaurant or something, or you can go to a place like this one and just stay there and you'll spend almost nothing. But if you live in a van, and I'm living here for 8 months, as you know, you do things that you do in your life. If you live full-time in a van, the money you spend is gonna be like living somewhere else in some different way. It's gonna be the same, because you're gonna do the same things. You're gonna buy the same kind of stuff. You only don't pay a rent, but then you need to buy things to dress. You need to buy, of course, food. You need to pay tickets to go see concerts because you like to do that, and you like to go for a beer sometimes, and you like to take a coffee in a nice spot. You know, you like to see museums. And everything has a price. So don't think that if you live in a van for several months or for several years, that you're gonna stay every single day in a place like this. After a while, believe me, especially if you're traveling alone, you'll need to see people, to go out, to do something, and that always has a price. You always have things where to spend more money. Even if I have coffee here, I like to go sometimes and pay for a coffee in a nice place with a nice view, you know. And then the point of living in a van, before everything else, is to be happy. And there are other things that I like to do, and I need money for that. The most expensive thing is gas. Even if in Europe gas is more expensive than pretty much everywhere else in the world, I think even in South America, doesn't matter where, gas will always be where most of your money goes. And then more you drive, more expensive will be. Like in January, that I start the month in Croatia and I end the month in Malta. So I came all over Italy, from the far north to Sicily. I spent more money, much more, than this month here in Malta. And then I didn't went straight. It was a very expensive month. I spent more than 1,000 euros. Then I took ferry to Sicily. It was almost 60 euros. Ferry to Malta, 150 euros. So, and then I spent 400 euros in gas, maybe even a little bit more. So you have an idea already. What is cheap is, and that's my rule number one, never spending money in a place to sleep. Never, ever. So I never spend money in a hostel or hotel or something else. That's why I live here, so I can sleep everywhere for free. Even parkings or campings, I don't pay. Even €1 I don't pay. Maybe I'll do it in other places. I remember when I went to Russia, there was some remote places in the middle of nowhere where it's better to pay €2 to sleep in a truck station, because there's a security guard. And in some countries, I'll pay, but not in Europe. I'll never pay for sleep. Never, never. Food, supermarket. It's the cheapest way, of course, but then even that, some countries are more expensive than others. But you always spend at least €5 a day. If you spend €5, it's a good. When I go to the supermarket, I always spend around €20 for 3 days. In a day in a museum, sometimes only a museum you pay €10, so that changes everything. That's why I don't believe when people say they can live for several months spending €500, something like that. I don't believe you. The only way that you spend like $10 a day, if you stay in the same place for 2 months without moving the van, without spending money with gas, and that money is only for food. And I think even that you need to fish sometimes to provide food for free, because then there are always tolls, bridges that you need to pay. Even if I always try to get away from paying roads, sometimes happens, or because there's no other way, or because you need to do like 300 kilometers around, so it will be better to pay €10 of toll, or because there was a mistake with the GPS, or instead of taking right you took left, so then you're inside the motorway and you need to pay. Then you have car insurance. The car needs to change oil, filters. If you live in a van, that's part of your budget. My windshield is broken. I'm not sure if the insurance will pay it. If I need to pay, it will be very expensive. That's part of my life here. A car hits, breaks a mirror or something. You need to pay for a new one. A flat tire. You need to change tires. Once a year, once every 2 years, that counts. You need to pay for them. So if you plan to go in holidays, you don't need to plan that much. It's like going in holidays, taking a plane somewhere. You go, you have a budget and you control it for a month or two. But if you actually live inside a van, there are always new things. Fines. I took a few in Italy, for example. And that, every time you have one, never less than 15. They usually are around €30, €50. That's a very expensive way of spending money, but it's part of it. You need to put it inside the money you spent. With Vanilda, for almost a year, I have Vanilda for almost 11 months, so almost a year I spent zero with it. Aside the normal things that you need to do from time to time, I spent zero. And still, if I take all the money I spent since I started living here to see how much I spent for every single day, is for sure much more than 10 euros. It is more than 20 euros. And 20 euros can be much more realistic, can be around 20 euros, but never 10. Then, like this week for example, I've spent pretty much nothing. I've been for several days by the sea, went to the supermarket 4 days ago, and I stop here, I go nowhere, I don't move much, so I don't spend money. And sometimes I do this because I like to do, because I need to stop a little bit, but also because I need to control the money I spend, and the only way I can spend less is staying in the same place and going nowhere. If I go somewhere, I'll spend more. Breaks. Healthcare. Well, in Europe is for free, and as a European citizen I don't pay anywhere if I have a problem. I have it covered. But if I go outside the European Union, you need to pay an insurance. It's maybe the cheapest way of living, but still it's not for free. Fuses to change. Radio station that burn. I'll need to spend money with it. Some problem with the bicycle. Car lights. Sometimes you need to change them. Oil. The cars eat oil, so you always need to have a bottle of 1 liter with you. It's not cheap. So Vanilda, she eats me a liter of oil, let's say every 2 months. If I talk only about the last 5 days, for example, the cost of life in a van is 0. But I'm here for almost a year, and there are days where I spend hundreds of euros. The day I'll go back to Sicily, only that day, full tank of gas. The ferry boat, only those 2 things will be almost 300 euros. How many days you need to be stopped like this to make those 300 euros go very low? That's never gonna happen, because then I don't want to stay a month in the same place. I could, but after, like, let's say a week, it's too much for me. Then there's internet. Even if I have the antennas that I can pick open internet, because mostly because of the vlog, I cannot be waiting for that, so I need to pay for internet. And I use my cell phone. Every country I go, I buy a data SIM card, and that can go to 100 euros a month, especially if you have a daily vlog like I do. 2 people, life will be much more cheap. But still, you never know how much money you'll spend. You're always gonna have very cheap weeks and very expensive weeks. Don't count less than 1,000 euros a month. Will be very difficult or almost impossible to do it. It's just like living somewhere else. The only difference is you don't pay rent, but you spend more money with your car. I hope you like this video, a little bit different from the other ones, talking about how much money I need and you'll need to live full time in a van. If you liked, don't forget to put your thumbs up and of course subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Take care.